Hello there. Welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, welcome and thanks for joining in. You're just in time. Just in time for the bedtime stories that I am going to be reading to you. So today's book is called Smoke and Mirrors, Short Fictions and Illusions. And this story is by Neil Gaiman, and this story is called The Wedding Present. So let's begin. After all the joys and the headaches of the wedding, after the madness and the magic of it all, not to mention the embarrassment of Belinda's father's after-dinner speech, complete with family slideshow, after the honeymoon was literally, although not yet metaphorically, over, and before their new suntans had a chance to fade in the English autumn, Belinda and Gordon got down to the business of unwrapping the wedding presents and writing their thank you letters. Thank yous enough for every towel and every toaster, for the juicer and the bread maker, for the cutlery and the crockery and the teas made and the curtains. Right, said Gordon. That's the large objects thank you'd. What have we got left? Things in envelopes, said Belinda. Checks, I hope. There were several checks, a number of gift tokens, and even a £10 book token from Gordon's Aunt Marie, who was poor as a church mouse, Gordon told Belinda, but a dear, and who had sent him a book token every birthday as long as he could remember. And then at the very bottom of the pile there was a large brown business-like envelope. What is it? Asked Belinda. Gordon opened the flap and pulled out a sheet of paper the color of 2-day-old cream, ragged at top and bottom, with typing on one side. The words had been typed with a manual typewriter, something Gordon had not seen in some years. He read the page slowly. What is it? Asked Belinda. Who's it from? I don't know, said Gordon. Someone who still owns a typewriter. It's not signed. Is it a letter? Not exactly, he said, and he scratched the side of his nose and read it again. Well, she said in an exasperated voice. But she was not really exasperated. She was happy. She would wake in the morning and check to see if she was still as happy as she had been when she went to sleep the night before, or when Gordon had woken her in the night by brushing up against her, or when she had woken him. And she was. Well, what is it? It appears to be a description of our wedding, he said. It's very nicely written. Here. And he passed it to her. She looked it over. It was a crisp day in early October when Gordon Robert Johnson and Belinda Karen Abingdon swore that they would love each other, would support and honor each other as long as they both should live. The bride was radiant and lovely, the groom was nervous, but obviously proud and just as obviously pleased. That was how it began. It went on to describe the service and the reception clearly, simply, and amusingly. How sweet, she said. What does it say on the envelope? Gordon and Belinda's wedding, he read. No name? Nothing to indicate who sent it? Uh-huh. Well, it's very sweet and it's very thoughtful, she said. whoever it's from. She looked inside the envelope to see if there was something else inside that they had overlooked. A note from whichever one of her friends, or his, or theirs, had written it, but there wasn't, so, vaguely relieved that there was one less thank you note to write, she placed the cream sheet of paper back in its envelope, which she placed in a box file, along with a copy of the wedding banquet menu and the invitations and the contact sheets for the wedding photographs, and one white rose from the bridal bouquet. Gordon was an architect and Belinda was a vet. For each of them, what they did was a vocation, not a job. They were in their early 20s. Neither of them had been married before, nor even seriously involved with anyone. They met when Gordon brought his 13-year-old golden retriever, Goldie, gray-muzzled and half-paralyzed, to Belinda's surgery to be put down. He had had the dog since he was a boy and insisted on being with her at the end. Belinda held his hand as he cried, and then suddenly and unprofessionally she hugged him tightly, as if she could squeeze away the pain and the loss and the grief. One of them asked the other if they could meet that evening in the local pub for a drink, and afterward neither of them was sure which of them had proposed it. The most important thing to know about the first 2 years of their marriage was this: they were pretty happy. From time to time they would squabble, and every once in a while they would have a blazing row about nothing very much that would end in tearful reconciliations, and they would make love and kiss away the other's tears and whisper heartfelt apologies into each other's ears. At the end of the second year, 6 months after she came off the pill, Brenda found herself pregnant. Gordon bought her a bracelet studded with tiny rubies, and he turned the spare bedroom into a nursery, hanging the wallpaper himself. The wallpaper was covered with nursery rhyme characters, with Little Bo Peep and Humpty Dumpty and the dish running away with the spoon over and over and over again. Belinda came home from the hospital with little Melanie in her carry cot, and Belinda's mother came to stay with them for a week, sleeping on the sofa in the lounge. It was on the third day that Belinda pulled out the box file to show her wedding souvenirs to her mother and to reminisce. Already their wedding seemed like such a long time ago. They smiled at the dried brown thing that had once been a white rose, and clucked over the menu and the invitation. At the bottom of the box was a large brown envelope. Gordon and Belinda's marriage, read Belinda's mother. "It's a description of our wedding," said Belinda. "It's very sweet. It even has a bit in it about Daddy's slideshow." Belinda opened the envelope and pulled out the sheet of cream paper. She read what was typed upon the paper and made a face. Then she put it away without saying anything. "Can't I see it, dear?" asked her mother. "I think it's Gordon playing a joke," said Belinda. "Not in good taste either." Belinda was sitting up in bed that night, breastfeeding Melanie, when she said to Gordon, who was staring at his wife and new daughter with a foolish smile upon his face. "Darling, why did you write those things?" "What things?" "In the letter, that wedding thing, you know." "I don't know." "It wasn't funny." He sighed. "What are you talking about?" Belinda pointed to the box file, which she had brought upstairs and placed upon her dressing table. Gordon opened it and took out the envelope. "Did it always say that on the envelope?" he asked. "I thought it said something about our wedding." Then he took out and read the single sheet of ragged-edged paper, and his forehead creased. "I didn't write this." He turned the paper over, staring at the blank side as if expecting to see something else written there. "You didn't write it?" she asked. "Really, you didn't?" Gordon shook his head. Belinda wiped a dribble of milk from the baby's chin. "I believe you," she said. "I thought you wrote it, but you didn't." "No." "Let me see that again," she said. He passed the paper to her. "This is so weird. I mean, it's not funny, and it's not even true." Typed upon the paper was a brief description of the previous 2 years for Gordon and Belinda. It had not been a good 2 years, according to the typed sheet. 6 months after they were married, Belinda had been bitten in the cheek by a Pekingese, so badly that the cheek needed to be stitched back together. It had left a nasty scar. Worse than that, nerves had been damaged, and she had begun to drink, perhaps to numb the pain. She suspected that Gordon was revolted by her face, while the new baby, it said, was a desperate attempt to glue the couple together. "Why would they say this?" she asked. "They?" "Whoever wrote this horrid thing." She ran a finger across her cheek. It was unblemished and unmarked. She was a very beautiful young woman, although she looked tired and fragile now. "How do you know it's a they?" "I don't know," she said, transferring the baby to her left breast. "It seems a sort of they-ish thing to do, to write that and to swap it for the old one and to wait until one of us read it." "Come on, Melanie, there you go. That's such a fine girl." "Shall I throw it away?" "Yes. No. I don't know. I think..." She stroked the baby's forehead. "Hold on to it," she said. "We might need it for evidence." I wonder if it was something L organized. L was Gordon's youngest brother. Gordon put the paper back into the envelope, and he put the envelope back into the box file, which was pushed under the bed and more or less forgotten. Neither of them got much sleep for the next few months. What with the nightly feeds and the continual crying, for Melanie was a colicky baby. The box file stayed under the bed, and then Gordon was offered a job in Preston, several hundred miles north, and since Belinda was on leave from her job and had no immediate plans to go back to work, she found the idea rather attractive. So they moved. They found a terraced house on a cobbled street, high and old and deep. Belinda filled in from time to time at a local vet's. seeing small animals and house pets. When Melanie was 18 months old, Belinda gave birth to a son whom they called Kevin, after Gordon's late grandfather. Gordon was made a full partner in the firm of architects. When Kevin began to go to kindergarten, Belinda went back to work. The box file was never lost. It was in one of the spare rooms at the top of the house, beneath a teetering pile of copies of the Architect's Journal and Architectural Review. Belinda thought about the box file and what it contained from time to time, and one night, when Gordon was in Scotland overnight consulting on the remodeling of an ancestral home, she did more than think. Both of the children were asleep. Belinda went up the stairs into the undecorated part of the house. She moved the magazines and opened the box, which, where it had not been covered by magazines, was thick with 2 years of undisturbed dust. The envelope still said Gordon and Belinda's marriage on it, and Belinda honestly did not know if it had ever said anything else. She took out the paper from the envelope and she read it. And then she put it away and sat there at the top of the house, feeling shaken and sick. According to the neatly typed message, Kevin, her second child, had not been born. The baby had been miscarried at 5 months. Since then, Belinda had been suffering from frequent attacks of bleak, black depression. Gordon was home rarely, it said, because he was conducting a rather miserable affair with the senior partner in his company, a striking but nervous woman 10 years his senior. Belinda was drinking more and affecting high collars and scarves to hide the spiderweb scar upon her cheek. She and Gordon spoke little, except to argue the small and petty arguments of those who fear the big arguments, knowing that the only things that were left to be said were too huge to be said without destroying both their lives. Belinda said nothing about the latest version of Gordon and Belinda's marriage to Gordon. However, he read it himself, or something quite like it, several months later, when Belinda's mother fell ill and Belinda went south for a week to help look after her. On the sheet of paper that Gordon took out of the envelope was a portrait of a marriage similar to the one that Belinda had read, although at present his affair with his boss had ended badly, and his job was now in peril. Gordon rather liked his boss, but could not imagine himself ever becoming romantically involved with her. He was enjoying his job, although he wanted something that would challenge him more than it did. Whoa, that was a mysterious story, and quite creepy actually. So anyway, I hope you do like that reading, and if you do like it, do give it a like and share it with someone you think might enjoy this reading. And it's really late right now, and I have to go to sleep. So if you are going to sleep too, I wish you a good night, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye. Take care.